Welcome to episode 69 of the One and Only Podcast. I'm Mark Shapiro, and today we are going to switch up the format in an episode that is all about the state of real. Today, I'm going to share 3 years worth of research and 68 episodes worth of insight in one comprehensive episode that you can benefit from, enjoy, and share with those you love. I'm going to chime in on this week's public debate about the concept of authenticity, offer up my own definition. I'm going to explain the idea, meaning, and story behind my signature question, are you being real? Stats I've compiled from the Are You Being Real reality check, which reveal where people have the most challenging time being real, as well as tips and tools that have supported me and my clients in having more winning weeks. Let's dive in. Unless you're Oprah, be yourself is terrible advice. This is the headline of Wharton professor Adam Grant's latest New York Times article, where he references a comment Oprah jokingly made a few years ago when she said, "I certainly had no idea that being your authentic self could get you as rich as I have become. If I'd have known that, I'd have tried it a lot earlier." While Grant confesses his authentic opinion that nobody wants to see your true self, denouncing radical honesty and speaking everything on your mind, which is a practice I think we can all agree is reckless and insensitive, together with challenging Brené Brown's advocacy for vulnerable sharing on true, heartfelt, and important issues. Grant claims that authenticity gets us in trouble, whether by oversharing or constricting ourselves to the I am who I am box, which can obviously prevent growth. Ultimately, Grant calls for us to change from the outside in versus the inside out, and sincerely live and exhibit the values we claim. Well, Grant's article then sparked an exchange on LinkedIn with vulnerability expert Brené Brown, who felt Grant didn't properly display her definition of authenticity in full context, because it didn't reference Brown's advocacy for setting personal boundaries of what we chose and choose to share with others, which is a topic that I've talked about on a number of occasions on the One and Only Podcast. Well, I love that this conversation is happening, and it evokes new perspectives that are relevant to every human on the planet, but at the same time, just like authenticity, to each their own. It's an endless debate where all are right and all are wrong. And as I say that, I'm going to express my own opinion that we are overcomplicating it. What's funny about this is that I've asked thousands of people what authenticity means to them over the last 3 years, including the 64 powerful guests I've interviewed on the One and Only Podcast, one-on-one coaching clients, workshop attendees, friends, people I've sat next to on airplanes or been in line with at the grocery store. I've even gotten my 88-year-old grandparents to chime in. My grandma echoes Shakespeare's famous line from Hamlet, "To thine own self be true." While nearly every answer I've received is beautifully similar and personally unique, just like us 7 billion humans, and while a few argued that authenticity doesn't exist due to all of life's external influences and pressures, like podcast guest Mark Greenspan, the general consensus is that it's a pretty black and white issue. You either consider yourself bluntly authentic, practice authenticity, and have certain hotspots or situations where it's challenging, or aren't in tune to the conversation at all. So, where do I stand on the meaning of authenticity in this conversation? As I mentioned just a moment ago, I think we're overcomplicating it. And here's what I hope will be a way of laying it out in a more digestible and serving way. For me, authenticity is a combination of three factors. Number one, honoring feelings in the moment, which I refer to as the micro. Two, living in sync with your core values, lifelong dreams, what you deem most important, which is the macro. And then third, our ability to grow and choose who we want to be. Was that simple enough? But what does that even mean? Being authentic is having the courage to ask yourself important questions that influence your motives, behaviors, and actions, and being honest with yourself and with others. It doesn't have to be hard or easy, but depending on the situation and or area of your life, together with societal, familial, social, and self-imposed pressures, can have a large impact on the level to which you are willing to A, take a deeper look at what's really going on and how you feel, B, whether you're willing to embrace your truth, and C, take action in order to create alignment and or resolution. So here are some questions that you can ask yourself if you're interested. How am I feeling right now? What's true for me in this particular moment and why? How does it correlate and align with my core values and what I want most? And what's the best course of action that will be responsible, liberating, and fulfilling? Now, while all this existential jargon and debate may sound interesting regarding the meaning of authenticity, at what point does it transition from being an ideal way to live to addressing the value and real challenges that people face in their daily lives? So let's start with the value of being authentic, which I'm going to do quickly as I dedicated a full episode to my top 4 reasons to be authentic back in episode 24 of the One and Only podcast. Number 1, having the courage to be authentic is liberating. It makes you uniquely you. It's satisfying to own your voice and live your truth, which builds confidence and is empowering, which creates positive momentum. 2, living in sync with your core values and what's true in the moment simultaneously generates fulfilling results and the life you want long term. It's living your vision and a life of no regrets. 3, you create immense value for others when you're being yourself, because no one else sees the world the way you do. No one. And your perspective matters. And the result of that, as long as you speak your truth from a loving place, is that people will trust you and you'll have a stronger relationship with everyone as a result. And 4, as Brené Brown has touted, when you're being yourself, you don't need to try and forcefully attempt to fit in. Instead, shine bright and naturally belong. Now, on the flip side, not being authentic has massive repercussions. It's exhausting trying to fake it, which is dissatisfying, causes sadness, frustration, stress, and anxiety, right? It's also a great way to feel extremely disconnected from others, feeling misunderstood, and having a lot of toxic relationships. Lastly, and most importantly, selling out on yourself is the worst feeling in the world that not only affects the way you see the world, but also the way you treat yourself. It's the easiest way to feel like you're not enough, not worthy, not capable, and the quickest way to kill your dreams. As I mentioned, I first shared these distinctions in episode 24, as well as my story of how I started practicing authenticity after the world-shattering end to my 11-year relationship and marriage, followed by the encouragement of 2 dear friends who I've since had on the podcast, Lewis Howes and Chris Lee, and what ultimately led me to say goodbye to my 6-figure job of 12 years at Showtime Networks and hello to an authentic life of service. And here I am today, sharing 3 years worth of research and 68 episodes worth of insight in one comprehensive episode about the state of real. So let's segue into the real challenges that people face in an attempt to be authentic. And this rabbit hole goes deep, as there are so many different areas of our lives where we have the chance to be real or not real. All of a sudden, being authentic isn't quite as cut and dry as always speaking your truth. And instead, there are infinite different areas of our lives where we are challenged to live our truths. And with more noise than ever, with social media, the massive amount of daily responsibilities in our lives, the urgent issues that arise that need to be handled immediately, the opinions of others, societal pressures, together with our own fears, doubts, and limitations, it's never been easier to get distracted from what's most important. We have too many choices, limited energetic bandwidth, and too little time, so we ignore stuff. And as best-selling author Dan Millman said on the One and Only podcast, having it all together is like eating once and for all. It doesn't happen. It's an ongoing process. And that's why I've expanded the core message of the One and Only podcast from being all about authenticity to a more simple, digestible, and wide-reaching word: real. You may be wondering, is there a difference between real and authentic? Well, we could debate this topic all day long, like the meaning of authenticity, but I do want to take a second to share an interesting perspective I learned from Julian Baggini in his TED Talk, Is There a Real You? Baggini claims that a collection of experiences makes us who we are. It's our memories, desires, beliefs, and feelings, and that these are all connected and collectively form our sense of self. And like a waterfall, which is structure and formation are relatively stable and consistent over time, especially in the time frame of the average human's life, it's also flowing and ever-changing. And as a result, we have the ability to change our true selves and reshape. Which leads me to share the evolution of my journey and how are you being real, my signature question, website, and social handles came to be. So let's rewind to last summer. It was July 2015, probably about 7 p.m. Pacific time here in Los Angeles. I'm just about to wrap up a long, inspired workday. And I decide to Google Make Your Mark Today, which was my website. So I was just kind of Googling different derivatives of that, Make Your Mark Today. And I Google Make Your Mark. And I find makeyourmark.com, which I wasn't surprised to find because obviously there's a makeyourmark.com. And I decided to click on the link. And I click on it and I see that makeyourmark.com is the home of the Make Your Mark podcast. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. There's no way that it's on the same topic as the One and Only, being on authenticity. And so I dove down a little bit further. And sure enough, the Make Your Mark podcast is about authenticity and being real. And my whole world went dark in that moment. Here I was building my brand, which was a combination of the One and Only podcast and the home of the One and Only podcast, makeyourmarktoday.com, that I'm building this brand. And now I might be subject to a lawsuit because it's so similar to makeyourmark.com's Make Your Mark podcast. It's going to cause, consumer confusion. People aren't going to know the difference between the two. And while it appeared that this Make Your Mark podcast was defunct and that whoever was running it wasn't still making episodes of it, I was still terrified and realized, oh crap, I need to rebrand. I need to change it. And I'll just give you the quick backstory on this. I chose makeyourmarktoday.com because Mark Shapiro has a very common name and markshapiro.com wasn't available. So I wanted to come up with something. And my podcast producer needed some kind of URL to throw the podcast on. So I came up quickly with Make Your Mark Today without doing a ton of research on it. So here I am getting ready to go into panic mode. But instead of really diving deep into panic mode, which I easily could have done, I could have given up right there on the spot. I instead used it as an opportunity. I knew that with challenging moments comes the opportunity to grow, to excel, and to possibly even come up with a better idea, with a better URL, with a better brand. So I started coming up with ideas, and I came up with thousands of different ideas for the home of the One and Only podcast. The One and Only clearly wasn't available. OneandOnly.com not available. OneandOnlyPodcast.com too long. Do I want to have authenticity in the title? Do I want to go with something different like real or true? I came up with so many different word combinations. I did Survey Monkeys for my friends. At one point, I thought it was going to be timeforouthenticity.com. I was also considering betheonlyyou.com. All decent, but none of them good enough. My close friend Adam Ward came up with the idea Breathe Authenticity, but that seemed a little woo-woo for me, so I didn't go for it. All of a sudden, July becomes August, August becomes September, September becomes October, October becomes November, and I still don't have a new URL. And I was starting to get frustrated by it. But I'm like, it'll come in time. I'm not going to settle on something that isn't perfect. So in mid-November of 2015, just, about 6-7 months ago, I am out at Harvell's nightclub in Santa Monica, California. It is this absolutely incredible jazz club. There is amazing music there. And I was there with my friend, Ashley Rose. And we get there and the music is rocking. It is so good. The place is packed. So we're kind of standing off to the side and I feel my foot tapping. It's tapping a little bit more. And I feel that urge to dance. I absolutely love dancing. I feel so free when I dance. But there's nobody on the dance floor. So I think to myself, well, are you not supposed to be dancing because there's nobody dancing? And then I'm like, no, come on, that's crazy. You're at a jazz club. Of course you can dance if you want to dance. And then I thought to myself, well, maybe I shouldn't. And then I realized, wow, this is totally fear popping up for me. And that succumbing to this fear goes against everything that I stand for. So I'm like, all right, F it. I'm going to do it. So I grab Ashley's hand. We go onto the dance floor, which is completely barren. And within 30 seconds, the entire dance floor is full. And boom, I was like, holy moly, wow. I just created the space for all these other people to dance as well. Like, who knows if they had that same itch as well to get up on the dance floor, and maybe they just didn't have the courage to do so, didn't think that they could. And here I had created this space, not only for me to feel liberated and let loose, but for other people to do the same. Fast forward 2 minutes, I'm still dancing my ass off, having a great time on the dance floor, and the light bulb goes off. The URL, your brand, the home of the One and Only podcast, the URL should be a question. You're always asking people really hard questions. You love asking yourself hard questions. This is fresh. This is different. This is unique. I can't think of any other websites that are in the form of a question. So I'm like, yes. So I knew that it was a question, but didn't really spend any time on the dance floor because I was partying and having a great time. But I get home at around 2 a.m. from Harvell's, and I go right to my computer. Type in GoDaddy.com, comes up, and I type in the first thing that comes to my head. AreYouBeingReal.com. It's available. No way. Really? That's available? Are you being real? No one else has come up with that idea? Sweet. Well, this is it. So after 5 months of coming up with all sorts of ideas, boom, I found it, areyoubeingrreal.com, and I purchased the URL on the spot. And easily one of my favorite parts of this story, which I think is absolutely hilarious, is that about probably 2 or 3 weeks after I came up with the idea for areyoubeingrreal.com, and I started working with my dear friend Thomas Brodel, who supported me with the branding, the look and feel, and got Damon Mehta up in Canada to actually build the site, that I get an email from Steve Gum. And Steve Gum is the guy behind MakeYourMark.com and the Make Your Mark podcast. And in his email is an offer to purchase MakeYourMark.com for $20,000. So I wrote him back quickly. I'm like, no, thank you. I came up with this great idea, areyoubeingreel.com, which I'm launching in a few weeks. But, thank you so much for the offer. Good luck finding a seller. So I thought that was hilarious. And I guess if you want to purchase MakeYourMark.com for $20,000 or make Steve Gum an offer, go for it. So what did I learn from this? Why am I telling you this story? Well, when I courageously pushed through my fear, it opened me up to the flow of creativity, and I was rewarded with this idea that I've been wanting to come up with for months when I was trying to force it. Also, what I learned from this, and from this exercise, is that it reinforced a very valuable marketing lesson, that a brand must be interesting, unique, and memorable. And after this 5-6 month exercise, coming up with the ideal workplace, which is my company culture design agency, as well as my winning weeks leveling up program concepts, those came to me much more quickly and easily as a result. Anyway, back to Are You Being Real and the background of my vision for it. As we all know, life is a process of learning and growth. And as Socrates, Carl Jung, and thousands of others have touted, it's our job to be true to ourselves. And I'd like to add that we should also support others in doing the same, so we can all develop, thrive, and take advantage of each other's unique talents and gifts. It's like one big puzzle, and we're all our own unique piece. I mean, imagine, what would the world look like if more people had the courage to blossom and broadcast who they truly are? Well, that's what I want to find out, and it's the central mission of all of my work, with areyoubeingreel.com being the home of the one and only podcast, the ideal workplace, winning weeks, and my other coaching programs, and ultimately serving as the online resource and a one-stop shop for authenticity, filled with inspiring content, deep and vulnerable storytelling, and valuable questions, exercises, and tips to help people. But you still may be wondering, what does Are You Being Real mean? And why am I asking it? It's a powerful question that can be asked by anyone about anything. It can be asked on a macro level, are you being real about your life in general? Or on a micro level, are you being real in what you say? Are you being real about the way you spend your time? Are you being real about what's not working in your life? The possibilities for exploration and growth are endless. Anyway, the beauty in the question, are you being real, is the direct path to the answer, i.e., your truth and how you really feel. And when honored, can serve as your compass to achieving whatever you want most. Sounds great, right? But still, as humans, we tend to look outward to fill our glass and for direction. And as La Femme Nikita star Peta Wilson asked on the one and only podcast, are you brave enough to be completely honest with yourself? Because looking within takes courage. Since you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing that you have the courage and consistently check in. But the majority of people take such few opportunities to pause and thoroughly check in with themselves, limiting it to New Year's and to their birthdays. I mean, I get it. There's so much going on in our lives, and deep reflection is tough. But checking in should be an ongoing process. And that is why I built the reality check tool on areyoubeingreel.com, which takes about 3 to 5 minutes to complete and gives people a wide range of questions to assess where they are and are not being real across several different vital areas of life, rating themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. It's a 15-question quiz, and here are some of the key takeaways from the aggregate results of the thousands of submissions. Where do people struggle most to be real with themselves? Time management, career, health, and how we treat ourselves are at the bottom of the list, which is frightening because these are arguably the most important. While on the flip side, people claim to be most real about being able to distinguish between fact and fantasy, speaking their truth with honest words, and being real about what's not working in their lives, which I personally have a tough time buying because many studies, including 2 separate ones from psychologists at the University of Massachusetts and University of Virginia, show that people lie in at least a fifth of their social exchanges lasting 10 or more minutes. And over the course of a week, they deceive about 30% of those with whom they interact with one-on-one, which those are just absolutely earth-shattering results to me. And in regards to the average rating of people being real about what's not working in their lives, which is a 7.1 out of 10, people feel like they're pretty clear about what's not working, then why do so many people have bad habits and destructive patterns that linger for years? So this poses the question about our level of self-awareness and the value of getting honest, constructive feedback from those we love to see how we show up to others. But that's a whole nother conversation. And let's get back to the number one most challenging area to be real for most people, and that is time management. Our most finite resource is time. And as William Penn historically said, time is what we want most, but what we use worst. We don't know how much of it we have, mourn its passing, can't get it back, yet still don't maximize it in the present with what's most important, which I credit to 3 factors. First, all of the noise and distractions that we choose to subscribe to, as I laid out earlier. Second, the infrequency in which we take inventory of what's most important and prioritize accordingly, while simultaneously managing so many different parts of ourselves and responsibilities. And third, straight up fear to get outside of our comfort zones, which we know creates growth opportunities, a wider scope, and individual belief of what's possible, creates confidence and results, as I've shared throughout this episode. So I propose we all take a note out of Elon Musk's playbook, who said, when something is important enough, you do it, even if the odds are not in your favor. Before I move on to the next subject, I want to take a moment to highlight this third piece because it's where most people give up. They have their big aha moment where the light bulb goes off, a great new idea about starting a company, their vision for their dream house, and with that idea, and as Dr. Loretta Bruning shared on The One and Only, comes a dopamine release, where the person immediately stands in the future and feels a sense of accomplishment without actually manifesting or living their dream. But it's the commitment, courage to take the first steps, overcome and learn from many obstacles and challenges, and the determination to go the distance which produces the ultimate result, which for most requires a healthy mindset, new perspective, greater accountability, and encouragement. It's walking the talk, and in my opinion, the best and most gratifying part of growth and transformation. And when combining the check-in and prioritization process with applying it and living it, that, my friends, is where the magic happens. It's the difference between making a New Year's resolution and getting that gym membership and going the distance, following through and achieving the desired result. And we shouldn't limit this concept to simply maintaining a healthy body, but across all areas of our lives, whether in regards to our professional aspirations, desired financial situations, social lives and depth of our relationships, work-life balance, and creating time for side passions, travel, and self-care. It's an ongoing practice for all, and an art, and a big reason why I love being a coach, as I get so much gratification when a client launches or substantially grows their business, finds and applies new levels of creativity and passion, improves their communication and effectiveness in getting what they want, and the list goes on and on. For me personally, checking in and using the Are You Being Real question and reality check as my primary vehicle to do so has specifically supported me in my business, relationships, and health, as well as my clients. Focusing in on what I know I need to do professionally to make a greater impact, such as doing more solo episodes and speaking my truth, diversifying by producing more videos, getting out there and facilitating additional workshops, and offering a greater amount of products and services. These are things that have been on my list for some time, and I'm now actively pursuing aggressively in my commitment to working smarter and creating more value for others. I will be honest. I've had countless ideas and tested numerous strategies since leaving Showtime, many of which I thought were surefire hits, and still didn't work. And while I never imagined it'd be easy to support others and simultaneously build a highly profitable business, it's been more challenging than I expected. But at the same time, keeping the wheels in motion and pushing through fear to courageously pursue my goals has made me stronger. The lesson here is that life will always have problems. As the great Tony Robbins says, anyone who doesn't have problems is in a cemetery. So with the challenges and the personal suffering that is a standard and inevitable part of life, we may as well experience them while growing and achieving our dreams than staying in the same place and likely bitching about it. I've also used the "Are you being real?" question to improve my health. It was an area that I dipped my toe in, but never fully committed to in my personal transformation. And I can proudly say that I'm working out 4 to 5 times a week and in the best shape of my life. Feels good. I've also used the question to deepen my relationships, leaning in to discomfort to share how I really feel, and also use the question literally to bring out honesty and clarity within a conversation. For example, it's a great follow-up question to a bold or general statement that a friend, a parent, anyone makes to you. Are you being real? Or using the derivative of it to create the space to speak your truth and have it be heard and received in a way that is heartfelt and caring. Can I be real with you? I found that everyone says yes. A lot of my clients have used this, "Can I be real with you?" in their relationships to start uncomfortable conversations. And it was the pathway for one client to repair a toxic relationship with his father. So I definitely recommend you use that. To sum it all up, and I have packed so much into this podcast episode, choose what's authentic and real to you. And you will set yourself up for a life of joy, prosperity, and fulfillment. In terms of the mechanisms available to you to help stimulate growth, there are a million supportive tools out there to tap into, like self-development workshops, working with a coach, accountability programs like my Exceptional Winning Weeks Mastermind, yoga, meditation, there's travel, reading books, listening to podcasts like this, learning from others in your life, or simply being a student of life. And if you're like me, you want to experience all of them. So I want to sign off by giving you a challenge. First, check in with yourself and prioritize what's most important. And you can do that over a walk, sitting and thinking, journaling, or by taking the "Are You Being Real?" reality check. Second, take action by courageously putting yourself out there and taking a smart risk. Like doing something you've always wanted to try or do, but haven't gotten around to, or something you know you should be doing but are avoiding. It's totally up to you. As we wrap up here, thank you for tuning in to this special episode of the one and only on the State of Real. If you enjoyed it or learned something new, share with your friends and family so they too can learn and benefit. And the links to share are areyoubeingreel.com/69 for this episode, the one and only iTunes page, which is areyoubeingreel.com/iTunes. Or if you want to share the reality check tool, it's on the homepage at areyoubeingreel.com.